Hello, my name is Alexis Chaney. I am a sophomore at the University of North Texas. I am getting a Bachelor of Arts in Music and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, and also a minor in German.
And I'm Lisa Vernon, and I am a licensed master social worker doing my clinical supervision hours and also CEO of Marlowe Joy Solutions. And together, we are going to go on a journey, a
Yes.
journey of impeccable series from mess to mindfulness. So we're really excited that you are joining us today. And hopefully our goal is to get you to think about a nugget of information that's going to help you just zen and get to a better version of who you are.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So let's get started.
Okay.
First off, what is mindfulness for those who don't know, and why is it so important?
I think for me, mindfulness is just getting in touch with who you are and knowing what triggers you, what calms you, what excites you, just being in touch of all those different versions, hence the word mindful, and really connecting when those things are important for you to take a time out of the world of busyness of work and studying whatever you are doing currently, and really trying to center yourself in one way or the other. So mindfulness can look at like a very different thing for different people because it works differently for different people. But I would say just being aware of your mind, your body, and your soul, and how you respond to the energies of the world. That's, for me, that's what mindfulness means.
Nice. A common misconception is that mindfulness is just yoga or meditation. What are some other ways that people can be mindful?
I was thinking about that, and I think for to be aware of what other things, well, as far as mindfulness could be. Um, I'm thinking for me when I had a busy day, this is what I just started doing. I went to Bath Body and Beyond. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but I went to the store and I was having some heat flashes. I'm just going to be honest with you. Being mindful, just being vulnerable is another thing about being mindful, is that you can be transparent, even if it's with yourself. So I went to get this cooling blanket, and I use it because, first of all, it helps me sleep better. And I started using it as a way of putting myself in a restful state before I go to bed instead of watching Hamilton.
Yeah.
That wasn't
I'm guilty of
working.
that.
No, instead of watching Hamilton, I still am guilty of that because I love musical theater and musicals, and we both jive on that. But for me, just figuring out a method or recreating different methods that will create a sense of peace and calmness is what different things mean, different things to different people. Going for a walk, I've noticed that if I work out right before I go to bed, that puts me at a very restful and tired state. Reading, some of the things that we take for granted, real simple things that we can still do, but do them where you're at a place that you're being intentional about giving yourself a break, because the body keeps score. The issues are in our tissues. So if we don't figure out a way of how to calm our bodies and our minds, then the world will take over. And there's so many things going on in the world right now. We definitely all need to carve out a place of peace. And that could be a lighting a candle, putting calming music on, or just sitting in. I looked at something that you researched some time ago, and it was do nothing for 90 seconds, and setting your timer to do nothing for 90 seconds. For some of us who like to fill our day with every second of doing something, doing nothing is also a great sense of mindfulness too.
Nice. As you do have a dance background, what are some movement-based mindfulness tips that you have?
Well, I like grounding, especially if you've had a difficult or challenging day, or you've been faced with some adversity or trauma. One of the things that I am reminded of is I actually had to do this when I first started working in Texas. I'm from Illinois. got my master's and my bachelor's from the University of Illinois. And when I moved here, my first year, I had to deal with the death of a student. And like I was in the home when the mother informed the sister that her sister was no longer here. And so, we don't think about secondary trauma and how it impacts us, but it does. And after we dealt and supported the family as frontline workers, we all took our individual time with a therapist. And one of the things that the therapist did with me was a grounding technique from the bottom up, from feeling every part of every single toe and gradually mentally moving that feeling and that emotion through my body. And then she would ask me feelings of, getting it out today, allowing me to cry, but silencing my voice so I can listen internally what my body was saying to me. You can do that on the floor. You can do that in a chair. You can also, if you're experiencing movement is what you're talking about. I just like lots of yoga poses. We picked apart a curriculum called just restorative practices, and as well as dynamic mindfulness. And in those two things, they take a look at how yoga poses and emotions can go hand in hand. Let's say that you have, an excited classroom of kids, or you just want someone to calm down. It's easy to say, calm down, but it's also something to say, if you can put on music, if you can close your eyes, and sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Stress, to relieve stress. A lot of people crack their knuckles or their heads. That's not really, that's a chiropractor's dream, but it's nothing that we should always do. So just thinking of at your desk, even just twisting and turning, going for a walk. There's a lot of things you can do when you're walking and talking and processing. Of course, for me, it's dance. And actually doing yoga is a lot of, it just depends on your body and your agility and your ability to move, the environment that you're in. You may be at work, you can't just bust out in a dance. I do though, but that's not always possible. But so you just kind of have to just have some things that that work for you, and it's better to prepare than repair, especially if you're in a situation where you know how your body keeps score, and you can feel stress and mess just kind of sits like the bottom of a dishwasher or something, just the gook and good, you're just cruddy, and you want to make sure before it gets to that place that you have something in your arsenal that you can pull out that works for you. And you can also, learn from other people, because there might be something that you may try someone else uses that may be helpful.
How can people find a moment of peace when they always feel like they're just so busy?
I thought about that too when you were asking me some of the questions. Well, we have to, again, going back to intentionality, it's like scheduling. We schedule our nails to get done. We schedule hair appointments. We schedule dentist and doctor's appointments, well checks, and registering for college. But we also have to, especially working parents, men, women, professionals, college students, you're busy too. That's a misconception. And if we've all been in college before, you have to carve out time for wellness. Wellness is something that we take for granted. And if we don't, things can happen. So what I do is now I have hired a personal trainer that keeps me accountable for it twice a week. I only go twice a week to her. It's all I can afford, at least for now. But I had to do that because I am so busy, and I wanted to figure out another way of channeling specific things in my body that I just wanted to just look better, because when I look better, I feel better. And so just putting that on my personal schedule, it's okay to be selfish sometimes. in order to take care of ourselves. We only get one body, and the older you get, you realize what I call new features. Things just start happening to your body. You're like, where did that come from? What's that about? And I just wanted to be a better physical, spiritual, emotional version of who I am. So let's face it, stress happens to us all the time. And I want to be able to, so for me, I just hired a personal trainer, and then I have friends who work out. And so I go to their classes at least once or twice a week to support them. And a friend of mine, we call it Talk It Out Tuesday, kind of stole that coin phrase from the Rickey Smiley morning show. I'm a fan. And we use Tuesdays to walk, eat healthy, and do something meaningful for each other. And we carved out Tuesday for that specific reason. Given that we're both super busy, then we use that time for one another to elevate and support one another. So those are just some personal things that I do. But you have to create where there's room for you to do that. With basketball and football happening at the same time virtually, it's been great for me and my boys. We have looked at our calendars, like today after we get done talking. That's one of the things that we're going to do. Carve out. I've already carved. I was intentional. We're going to eat brownies. We're going to have ice cream. Then we're going to watch this game, because this game is going to be happening while you and I are talking. Nice. But just making time for one another when you are busy, because moments matter. Yeah. They matter just like mindfulness does.
Great. In a similar vein, how would you recommend combating burnout?
Yes, burnout can happen to anyone, really. And I remember for the first thing that comes to mind is breathe, stretch, shake, let it go. I'm like a musicology social worker. I like to pick apart lyrics and teach them and get in the minds of kids and young adults about what they think those lyrics mean. But burnout can happen to any of us. And I'm always told, at the speed that you're going, you gotta slow down. You gotta slow down. You gotta make time for yourself. You gotta make time for healthier eating. You gotta make time to sleep, eat healthier. Write thank you notes for people that have supported you along the way. Don't be so busy that you forget to look and love people. If you keep those nuggets of information and affirmations in a place where you can see it every day, even if you have to write it on your mirror. Did you know you can use your dry erase markers on your mirrors? No. As you can. A friend of mine does that. Shout out to Sharon. Hey, Sharon, that's from you. Teacher friend, colleague, best friend. But that's just another nugget of, okay, I need to slow down. And sometimes when people say I talk to myself, there's no wrong talk. Full conversations in public might be a little odd, but talking to yourself, to me as a social worker, and you'll find this majoring in psychology. I know you're double major, but I'm thinking of psychology. That positive self-talk can also be that voice of reason, especially when you are going 100 miles an hour. And one of the podcasts I was recently listening to talked about boundaries. And one of the things she said she heard from someone else was, if your body doesn't tell you it's a complete yes, then it's a no. And also, to prevent burnout, no is a complete sentence. Every request is not a yes. Ooh, that's good. That's a rhyme there. But it's not. And for me, I'm such a giver that I started telling my kids, what if my answer, now that you've done your proposal, what if my answer is no? Are you ready to deal with that answer? And just challenging yourself of really sifting through. And then the podcast professional also said, it's okay to say, you know what, let me get back to you on that. Let me get back to you on that. Instead of, oh, yes, let me get right to it. What you say again, or responding right to an email or a phone call. I know that there are stipulations that you have to respond, by a certain period of time. But there are times where you need to sit back. It's the same thing that happens when you're angry about an email. You shouldn't do the same. The same thing holds true when you're angry and frustrated about something. Oh, that's what you think about? Oh, okay. You really shouldn't send something like that. The flip side is every request is not a yes. So keeping those little nuggets in mind, for me, those are things that are really starting to help me kind of pace myself through this crazy world.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome is something that so many people face. How would you recommend lessening the effects of it?
Okay, so imposter syndrome is really interesting because when I was doing some research on it, I was thinking about how we get in our heads of thinking that we're not good enough or worthy enough. And to a fault that we can miss opportunities and not thinking that we are worthy of the praise, of the purpose, of the time and talent of other people. And if you are the type of person that I can be sometimes, that this can go into what you're speaking of praise and compliments and things that are really positive centered. When you are feeling like you're not worthy of someone says, oh, I love that dress, and some people say, oh, this is so old. I just wore this. I've gained some. Can you tell? We completely deflate the compliment that was given to us as if we are our own internal imposters. I think that can happen to a lot of people who, even in grad school, they were saying, even highly professional industries, in education, academia, even as much knowledge as you've attained over the years, sometimes internally you don't even feel like you're worthy of having that. And I'll give you a really personal, transparent example. It took me a long time to become an LLC. I have been presenting and writing curriculum and seeing kids and being on the other line of a call of a crisis, primarily because it's my job, but I didn't think beyond what someone else tagged me or titled me to be. I never thought that I could brand myself in order to be who I already am. And I was my own internal imposter, thinking, oh, I do that at work. Oh, that's going to take a lot of time. And my sorority sisters would tell you, we went on a retreat to Atlanta a year ago in October, and they were telling me, we're going to even sponsor your LLC. And that was a year ago. And it took me till June to now that I am with Sanford Support Systems and Marlo Joy, and we're all together and living our best lives over here. So y'all come look us up, and helping kids and families. But it took me almost a year to realize the same thing that they told me that I realized I didn't know that I had the whole time. It's kind of like the storyline of The Wizard of Oz. When Dorothy was going to look for something that she already had. So Dorothy really had the imposter syndrome going for herself. It wasn't about the shoes. It wasn't about the Scarecrow or the Tin Man, even though it was a great musical. I was in The Wiz in 1988. What? I was a munchkin. Not the point. The point was is that you were looking for something that you had inside you the whole time. And so allowing yourself, and sometimes that's the noises that we say. So for me, the imposter syndrome is a self-discovery of realizing that you're worthy for that praise, that compliment, that job, that next level, that opportunity. Some people flip it and think that person is an imposter. They're not real, and labeling someone that they're not who they say they are. It can get conflicting, but as I did a little research, and I'm thinking about mindfulness too. Yes. And as I'm thinking about the topic of what we're discussing today, I definitely wanted to be aware of some of the things that we say we're the first person to hear. NDRE said that somewhere in a lyric. But you speak the words that you are the first person to listen to the words that you're speaking. And so when I was thinking about imposter syndrome, I was thinking about that. Mm-hmm.
Nice. What is toxic positivity and why can it be so harmful?
Well, I think toxic positivity can be harmful. It's like the flip side of that, and I might be guilty of toxic positivity. Yeah, I might be guilty of that. And if I were in a room full of, let's say, 6-year-olds, and I was doing a guidance lesson on emotion. I did a presentation some time ago about the behavior, what lies underneath the behavior. But if I were in this room with 6-year-olds and I was explaining to them through maybe Inside Out, that was a great movie, right? Mm-hmm. And it talked a lot about the different arrays of emotion, from fear to disgust to joy. Marlo, joy, there she goes again. Joy is an emotion. It's my favorite emotion, but that can be toxic if I don't allow myself to sit and feel in order to heal and deal. And if you're always a positive person, you don't know what's on the flip side. It's kind of like the rain. It's like the storm before the calm, or it's the other way around. But the point is that if you are joyful and positive all the time, you really don't give yourself any other space of how to manage and understand pain. And for a person like me, pain has to hit me right between the eyes. I lost my best friend and my dad in the same year. And it's really hard to be positive when you're going through pain. But in both of those major losses, I found a stronger part of me. I found a vulnerable part of me where I could cry in front of my children, where I can laugh and cry at the same time. That's really weird. That I can reflect. I can be angry, for leaving me. How are you leaving me to do this party by myself, Alicia? You're my Martha Stewart. How am I going to pull this off? It really allowed me to be uncomfortable. And what Brene Brown says, stepping right in front in the arena and not buying the cheap seats, but just jumping afraid. So being toxically positive won't allow you to stretch those emotional muscles of finding other places where you are. It's kind of like going to the gym and lifting balloons. Why would you do that? You go for resistance. You go for almost a little bit of pain, but the results of the time spent resisting with your body, it yields results that make you feel good. And you almost have to go through that in order to figure out who you really are. And we are so many things, just like this room. I would tell the 6-year-olds, it's kind of like the chairs that we're sitting on. It's hard to remove the colors. Each color represents something. That's what emotions are. So the same thing goes true for anger. It's okay to be angry about something, but it's not okay to stay there. The same thing goes true with toxic positivity.
Wow.
So I just think there's a lot of different ways that we can look at that. But I'm learning, Lisa, you don't always have to show up and entertain a room. This is not a time for you to make people laugh. Mm-hmm. This is not a time for you always to be happy. Get mad about something. Mm-hmm. I'll dare you to. Cry and cry. Allow yourself to just not be busy enough. Sometimes when we're too busy, going back to that question, we just kind of skip over the whole pain piece because it's easier to feel comfortable than it is easier to feel something completely different. And that's like eating different. Like when someone says, have you ever had, hummus before? Why would I eat hummus? I mean, how you spell hummus? But if you tried it and and you're like, oh, this is not as bad as I thought it was. For me, and I don't want to act like I have pain already, figured out, because I don't. I'm just cried a few days ago, and that's okay too. But to journal about it and to allow yourself to go through that process is a part of that answer. I hope I answered that in a very long-winded way.
How can people begin to implement mindfulness into their lives?
Yeah, I think that, I think just writing something down, I'm a big fan of, vision boards, journals, Post-it notes, writing on your mirror, dry erase markers, and just figuring out things that work for you and doing a little bit of research, listen to some podcasts, grab some books, do a poll on Facebook. We're all on social media, and just ask some of the friends that you have, and just kind of figure out what they do. And from that, just design your own menu of mindfulness techniques. And for me, like I said before, I'm such a routine oriented person, but getting up at 5 a.m. to work out with a personal trainer that uses resistance only. We're not in there twerking or nothing. We're lifting only for 30 minutes, but just tricking and shifting to a different mindset of mindfulness is really great. So I would say just maybe your top 5 or your top 10 of things. How people have bucket lists that what they want to do. Have a mindfulness list of things that you want to try. And you may not even like it. Pilates, yoga, just sitting in the park and identifying different flowers. I went to the park just to do some research and working with the art ladies here in Frisco, Junction Arts. And we're going to do something for the community soon. But what I found, and my goal was just to take pictures of the space that I kind of want us to work at. And what I found, it was a beautiful day. The wind was blowing, and I just stopped. And I looked around, and I looked at the kids playing, and I just listened to the sound of the wind. People probably thought, what is she in here doing? But for me as a person, I just left work. I just left a meeting, and I was just going by the park real quick. But for me, what that turned into was great selfies. Just 2. And just a piece of mindfulness that I wasn't even planning. So sometimes spontaneity can also give you a sense of mindfulness, especially if you're a ritualistic kind of planner person. But to do something that is completely out of the norm for you, but you're taking a healthy risk, and you're trying something different like hummus, which is not bad, then that can also lead to something that you would probably do again because you end up liking it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lastly, what are some long and short-term goals for being mindful and spreading that mindfulness to those around you?
Well, for me, it's really important that you really understand what goals are. And in going through this journey of life, 52 years worth, I found that I have to write everything down. And goals are, when I was thinking about goals, of course, in education and in other, areas, goals should be attainable, right? They should be doable, attainable. You should be able to negotiate them, and then you should be grateful when they are attained. And I call that dang. Like, dang! So if you can kind of keep that in mind, or goals are SMART goals, be specific, are they measurable, same kinds of concepts, attainable, and then you want to evaluate the effectiveness of them. But could create, and I'm looking over here, I don't want to pick it up, but there's a SMART goal sheet that we use with students. what are your goals? And that can be so vague if you ask someone that. What are your goals in life? What do you want to achieve? And just to wrap your head around that, most people think, and even adults can think, I don't know, I've always wanted to do X, Y, and Z, kind of like my LLC. I've always wanted to do it. But until someone showed me, the steps of how to make that true, that is what a goal is. It's your roadmap to grabbing something that is very important to you. And in order to spread that mindfulness to other people around, it's our mission, in fact, as part of what I love to do now that I am a CEO, is to tell other people, how did I do it? How did I get an LLC? I had that question. I had a client in here yesterday, and we did a consultation. She asked me the exact same thing. What's the first step that you needed to do? And I said, here's the thing that my attorney friend who walked me through the process told me. She said, we were almost done with everything. And then she said, okay, what's your name? What's the name of your company? And I said, oh, I don't know. She said, seriously, we got all the way up to this point. Katrina, remember? And she laughed so hard at me. And honestly, we had to stop the conversation because I didn't even know what I wanted to call myself. So my flaws, and I wouldn't say flaws, the things that I've learned along the way is that some things that I was able to share with her. So I was mindful of that. So when we make mistakes or we have hurdles or barriers, no matter what we're doing, if we're mothers or wives or professionals or business women, in graduates and undergraduate school, I've learned so much from you. That we share that knowledge with everyone else. As many people that can receive it, in my opinion. It's one thing to share your intellectual property with someone, but it's another thing to share the mindfulness piece of evolving the person of who you become. I don't think those are things that we should keep to ourselves. I think those are examples of, hey, I've made mistakes, and trust me, make sure you have a name, because when I didn't have one, we had to stop the process. So sharing things that will make us grow and to become better versions of ourselves are mindful, magical moments that is our duty and our responsibility to share with other people.
Great. Well, that's all I have for you.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to be doing this again every month.
Yes.
We are really excited. The Mess from Mindfulness tour, and Alexis is the brainchild behind the title, and I want to give her accolades because of that. But together, under Marlo Joy Solutions and UNT's finest, I am really grateful for this young lady right here. I don't want to start crying because then I'm like, okay, what kind of mindfulness podcast was that? Because I would, when I think of people, I'm just so grateful for people who are around me who matter, and you matter. And I think that's another thing that we should tell people, be mindful of people who matter and make sure that we let them know while we can. Thank you for coming, and thank you for joining us. Yes. And stay tuned for our next one, and you just have to look out for us.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.